Sage Wanderer here, coming at you from, well, down by the river. So I'm out running errands today, and I thought I would just take a moment and make a quick video. I've been really busy lately. I apologize for not making as many videos as I normally do. But part of it is I've been really heavily researching. Typically when I take a few days off, I've been researching something. So this video is in answer to Jon X Army's video, or in continuation of his video. Now, regardless of what you think about Jon, one of the things that I like about Jon X Army is he's not afraid to go really dark places, and we have that in common. We question things and bring things up that a lot of people don't want to talk about. And so his video he did a few days ago titled, I think it was, I'm going to guess at the title here, but it was something like, if you think it can't happen here, you're wrong. Or maybe it was, if it happened there, it can happen here. But in that video, he kind of, without going into much graphic detail, he talked kind of elusively about what happened in Liberia. In the Civil War that was in Liberia. It was a continuing period of civil unrest and civil war in that African nation. And although I was aware of the historical, Civil War there, and that, I was alive when it occurred, and although I was very busy with my career, I still kind of halfway listened to it. But what I didn't know until Jon X Army brought it up, and that was really the center core of his video, he was kind of focused on the cannibalism that occurred during that conflict. And so I was unaware of that. So thanks, Jon, for pointing that out to me, because I went down a dark rabbit hole and really examined exactly what happened in Liberia that led up to some of the video footage that you could find on the internet of a 14-year-old boy soldier eating a still beating human heart on camera. And it's not CGI. I mean, it's real. It happened, and it was captured on videotape. If you go deep down that rabbit hole, you'll hear the testimony of a man who is now an evangelical preacher. But when he was a young boy, a young man, he was known as General, General Bare Butt Naked? General Butt Naked, that's what it was, because he would fight naked. And he was a warlord in that war-torn country. And he talks about committing human sacrifice. And so Jon X Army asked the question, if it happened there, could it happen in America? And to that, I have to say, no, not like that. And here's why. There were three very extenuating circumstances that led up to that insanity. Now, what I would like to point out is that whether you're looking at this war-torn civil war or the one that happened in Bosnia, Herzegovina, in the Yugoslavian fracturing that happened in the 90s, Kosovo and, Croatia and all that whether you're looking at that incident or the incident in Liberia, one of the common things that people say is that madness affixed people. Madness just fell on people. And they behaved in ways that they never thought possible. And I think that, say what you want to about fiction, but The Walking Dead, I think in some ways captures some of that madness. But I don't think they capture the viral nature of that madness and how contagious that it is. And when war, when there are no rules, nothing matters anymore, war besets upon people, that they can lose their ever-loving mind. And that phenomenon, I think, is echoed in both of those Civil War breakdowns, where people started to commit atrocities that they would have thought were unthinkable. But then there they are doing it, and they describe it as a madness. But I see it as a demonic cloud that just falls onto a region when war breaks out. And this is why military discipline was so important. They were trying to stop those atrocities from happening, the rapes, the cannibalism, the murder, the torture, by being gentlemanly about settling your disputes, I guess. Maybe it cuts down on that madness and its ability to get a hold of people to some degree. But one thing that Liberia and, what happened in Bosnia, Herzegovina are very similar in that they both contained a certain level of insanity that no one could explain. And when it was over, they kind of were left going, what just happened? But in Liberia, there were some very specific circumstances that led to that level and that kind of, you know, the cannibalism and the ritual murder and the sacrifice of small children. And, you know, to listen to a now evangelical minister who was known as, you know, General Butt Naked, and he was this warlord before, and he discusses how he was raised up as a voodoo priest from his village. And as a young man, he was labeled a voodoo priest, and how he led this army of boy soldiers and all of these atrocities through the use of voodoo, and how he would, you know, bring a small child up and sacrifice a small child, and they all would share in the blood. So they're doing the adrenochrome thing. They're scaring this child to death and sacrificing it in front of his troops, and then they all share in the blood, and then they would cut the heart out and slice it up and hand it out in pieces. You know, this happened. This isn't fear porn. I'm not making this up. This is history. Look it up. You'll find all kinds of stuff on it. And, you know, he believed that made his troops invincible. And, you know, he survived all of that and then became a preacher. He converted to Christianity. It's one of the most bizarre, General Butt Naked. You should look it up. But at any rate, you know, could that happen in America? Well, the voodoo was such a powerful element to cause them to go down that road to begin with. So, you know, if you had a large group that were Satanists or some kind of occultists who believed in human sacrifice, then, I mean, that's an element that had to be there for Liberia to go down like it did. They weren't eating people because they were hungry. Okay, let's get that squared away. I mean, some of it was. There was some cannibalism. I mean, they were selling human body parts on the street for starving people. So there was some of that. But the huge atrocities and the people that were really committing the crimes, beyond people just, you know, feeding themselves, but it's so gross. This is so gross. I'm sorry. It's just, John, you brought it up. It's your fault. But it was more ritualistic than that. It was really about conquering one's enemies. It was about committing these atrocities to prove to yourself that you're bulletproof and to get some kind of demonic god behind you so that you can become invisible on the battlefield. So that's what happened in Liberia. You know, there were atrocities, and of course, along with that comes rape and torture and domination of all sorts. You know, in Liberia, for instance, there's footage of a young boy soldier walking down the street, and there's the sound of war. You can hear people dying, explosions, shooting, people running for their lives, because they were killing unarmed people. It was just massacring the other, you know, massacring the other side and and anybody that might be associated with them. Even if you got your own people in the middle of it too, it didn't matter. They were just killing everybody. And they're walking down the street, you know, everybody's got, you know, AKs, and the oldest one's maybe 17. And, you know, this stuff happened a long time ago. You can look it up. But they're going, you hear war and you hear shooting, but we hear music. This is music. This is the sound of death is music to our ears. I'm like, wow. Whoa. I just had this realization, you know, that's a demon talking through that boy. That ain't even him. Some evil spirit has taken over him. It's the spirit of war. It's the spirit of mayhem. It reminds me of that devious little commercial. I think it's Allstate, where they got the guy, he is mayhem. In this most recent one, he breaks into a guy's car and steals his car, and it's an insurance commercial. But, you know, the spirit of mayhem, could it befall on America? If you get right down to it, the Civil War was pretty civilized compared to other civil wars, like what happened in Liberia and Bosnia, Herzegovina, and Yugoslavia. You know, there were a lot of innocent people just murdered, just shot, you know, because they were the wrong ethnicity. Ethnic cleansing, you know, genocide. It's like the next step, like the next level in war is genocide. Could that happen in America? In a race war situation, I suppose it could. But there's a lot of elements that got to be in place for it to get as bad as it was in Liberia. And it probably would look more like what happened in Bosnia, when the ethnic Serbs decided they were going to cleanse the country of anybody that wasn't Serbian. And they were going to either force you off your land or kill you. And, you know, that was still horrible genocide, and still people, you know, men, women, and children, old people were all just massacred and shot. But it wasn't as demonic and flamboyant appearing as what happened in Liberia. Something like that could absolutely happen in America. Something like the as much as I think it's far-fetched and ridiculous, the Handmaid's Tale could happen if somebody that was extremely a religious fanatic somehow got control of the country. But I don't see that likely to happen. That was more likely something that would have happened in the early 20th century, not in the modern era. I don't think there's any people really like that much left anymore. But anyway, yeah, the Handmaid's Tale, something like that could happen. Genocide, you know, a communist takeover is the most common thing that could lead us down the rabbit hole of a world without rule of law. But could it ever get as bad as Liberia in America? I suppose if people were starving, it could get like The Road. If it got that bad, something that bad where the entire infrastructure was completely broke down on a global scale, then I suppose it would be like The Road, which is not a whole lot different than what happened in Liberia. Could it happen in America? What happened in Liberia? Probably not. But it could be something like it. And so I'm kind of split. I don't think it would go down like Liberia, but what people are capable of under the fog of war and mayhem blows me away. And the more I study it, the more I'm absolutely flabbergasted by the level of insanity that seizes people. And here's the warning that I'm going to give you, and the reason for this video is that I feel that cloud of war, that cloud of madness, that thing that I have studied in history that besets upon a population that causes them to tear each other limb to limb, to shred each other, the thing that turns brother against brother. It's a spirit, yo. It's a force. It's not just some generic, oh, it's the devil, he's just always been. No, there is a specific, specialized, demonic, evil, black gunk that just starts to fall on a society right before it turns on itself and it implodes. And that thing, that could happen here. That thing, it is happening here. Don't you feel it? Don't you feel it even pulling at your own sanity? This thing that's beset the earth that causes people, I mean, listen to Fox News for 5 minutes and listen to CNN for 5 minutes, and you'll have to ask yourself which one's crazy, because they're saying opposite things. Either one of them is a bald-faced liar and the other one's true, or they're both lying or something. It's madness already. The accusations against our president just because he fired somebody he was legally authorized to fire. There's a coup happening. You know, back to Liberia here. Liberia was actually a very peaceful place to live. Liberia was a pretty nice place to be. It was the pearl of Africa. And then in, I believe it was 1979 or 80, when a master sergeant in the army there just took it upon himself with a squad of people to go murder the long-term president who'd been president for like 17 years for his corruption. They just basically had a little private military tribunal, decided he was guilty of treason and corruption, and they just went right up there to the palace, shot their way into where the president was at, and murdered the president, and took over the palace, and everybody let them. And that was the beginning of about a 20-year process of civil war and mayhem that went on and on and on, and never really stabilized once it started. And that kind of thing could very well trigger a series of events here in America. That something like that was in the brew at the FBI, or still is in some deep state circles, that they want to take out the president. They've decided he's guilty. We're in a tight spot in this country. We're not the only ones. There's similar things going on in Europe, in Great Britain concerning Brexit. Big news there this week. Also in France concerning the Yellow Vest rebellion that's going on there. That this spirit of war, this black cloud I talked about, it's covering the whole earth right now. And I don't know what to do except duck and pray. Pray that it doesn't get a hold of me. You know, when this black cloud comes down, so many people have either been, you know, found themselves getting eaten alive by another human being and went, how did I get here? Right before they died. Or they're the one doing the eating and they're sitting there chewing on somebody going, how did I get here? It's that black cloud of evil. It's the spirit of war. Don't let it get a hold of you. God save our republic.